Eat, as you know, a subsidiary company of M. Price Can Read. And today, oh God, it's starting early, isn't it? I haven't even drank anything. It's probably the guacamole, but yeah, we're going to be eating some guacamole. Not this entire bowl, of course, but it's going to be a supplement to these chorizo burritos. Mainly eating these to get them out of my fridge. I have a lot of leftover food from my Mexican fiestas that I like to do, which take like 10 Tupperwares of leftovers. And I'm about to move, and I don't want to have to lug all this food back and forth. So I just quick whipped up some guacamole to eat, and I got, hopefully that's not too loud, but I got a bag of chips over here, and I'll just be snacking on the chips with the guacamole. That's because, that will actually probably have some sound as opposed to just some burrito action right here. But today we're going to be discussing remorse, which is usually... Oh my, I haven't even started drinking yet. Why am I already getting attacked? I think it's the guacamole. There's a lot of spicy stuff in there. No, not really, but I love garlic and I love jalapenos, and yeah, I'm a monster. I'm a menace. I had put a recipe down below for this, but it's literally just smashed avocados, some onions, tomatoes, jalapenos, salt, garlic, lime juice, just whatever proportions you want, really. But let's take a look. Good stuff. Snoopy alert. I am continuing my quest in finding fun drinks. So today we're going to have the Kona Big Wave Liquid Aloha. See if that's any good, and we're going to see if I can drink the whole thing. Because, like I said, I will be very remorseful today. Now I also want to open it without destroying, your ears, so... That is kind of a liquid aloha. It's like a beer, but there's a sort of fruitiness to it. I like you, Kona Big Wave. Anyway, I'm sure my burritos are already room temperature, so quick. Let's get them in. And I do have a fork, of course, with my guacamole, so I can just fork it into my grubby little mouth as I eat, because that's really the main attraction. But burrito time. But these are just simple. Chorizo, homemade beans, and rice. Usually I like to make my own, my own meats. But I'm just trying to destroy my freezer at the moment. So we're just gonna have some, store-bought chorizo, which is still fine. And cheese, of course. chips are the Fairway brand, of course. Hint of a lime, restaurant style. And they're salty as salty as hell. Just coat your fingers too. But remorse. We should probably get to the actual topic of this video. So, remorse, guilt, and regret are all kind of like looped in together. But remorse is like a profound feeling of guilt and regret, I think, combined. And one that is sort of long lasting. So guilt is sort of like a, whoopsie, I broke the cookie jar after stealing a cookie, and now mom and dad are gonna find out, and I feel bad about it because I wasn't supposed to do it. And I'll get in trouble for it, and I'll feel bad, and I'll learn my lesson, and, good to go. Regret. This is actually really good. Regret is like I should have done this, I should have went for that job that I could have got 5 years ago and I didn't do it and I regret doing it. Or I regret not saying, goodbye to that friend, or I regret not taking, this one pathway I could have done. And I feel bad about it, and I, regret not doing it, or I regret doing what I did do. And you kind of think about it, and you kind of feel bad. And it's not necessarily always, oh my, am I gonna even be able to get through this video with the beer and the guacamole and the salt of the chips? But regret and guilt can kind of be excluded from one another. You don't always regret everything you feel guilty about, like say, the cookie jar example, and you don't always feel, say, guilty about regret, because regret can sometimes be just, oh, I wish I did this thing, but I didn't necessarily do anything wrong or bad, so I don't feel guilty about it. I just regret, what I did. Can you hear me mash my guacamole around like mac and cheese, by the way? I guess we'll find out. But let me slather some of that on there. I'm not such an animal. But remorse is different than the other two. Oh my God. But remorse is different than the other two because remorse seems to combine both at once. It's a sort of complex creation of regretting something, of feeling bad about something, of wishing you could have changed something. Regret is like something that keeps you up at night, basically. So like, yeah, guilty, I think you would get over pretty quick. Regret is, I guess, guilt in like the simple sense. Guilt in a very long-term sense becomes remorse. But just very simple guilt you get over pretty quick. Regret is never necessarily good or bad. It's just kind of like a wistful, musing in the back of your mind, or at least it is to me. But remorse is, what truly keeps you up at night, what you have nightmares about, what you go back to, what do you think about when your mind is wandering and you're doing some menial task like, food prep or driving. It just kind of slips into your mind and you think, oh yeah, that horrible, horrible thing. Now it's just going to sit here and piddle around in my mind and I have to deal with it and push it away or just let it keep eating away at me, which, is never good. Eating away at burritos, though, very good. Judge myself around to reach all these things. Kind of fun. Usually Fairway brand is so good. Fairway's at the grocery store where I live, and I usually love them. And I buy all their store-bought stuff. This is my first time buying their tortilla chips. Oh my god, they're just covered in salt. Like, my god. Like, yes, you need a little salt, but it gets to a point where, like, you can barely talk after you eat one. Like, jeez. By the way, I think I should note that I don't normally slurp my beer every time I drink it like this. I'm just doing it for the video, to please the people at home. But remorse. So like, say when you break your arm, you have like that physical scar, or if you like break your nose or get a big cut, you have that physical scar that reminds you of the event, right? Well, remorse is like a mental scar, that sticks with you. It could be abuse. Oh my god, I'm getting abused by this food here. Oh, Lord. Oh, it's not done with me. Oh my god. It could be like abuse, trauma, a catastrophe. It could be something that happened in childhood. It could be something that happened with a core relationship, whether a romantic relationship or a family relationship. It could be something that happened at a job. It could, happen really at any point in your life, whether young or old. And it becomes this mental scar. That you basically have to deal with until you're able to rid yourself of it, or until it gets worse and you succumb to it, or unless you just learn to live with it. And even if you do say, get rid of your remorse, if you transcend it, then, at least in my experience, there will just be, just a sliver of it that remains. Just a sliver of it that reminds you of, hey, there used to be this, this one thing. It's kind of like a hole in your heart almost. Like a permanent scratch. But of course, you do want to take care of it. You don't want to let it fester. Because at that point, it becomes a sort of crutch that, in a way, you might even fall back on for comfort, as strange as it sounds. It's like, the good old thing you can always rely on. And usually a vice will accompany it. For instance, I'm just going to use actually the example for the artistic example I'm going to bring up. I want to talk about a game called Disco Elysium. And at this point, if my editing is, good, then some clips of Disco Elysium will appear. As I eat my guacamole. But, I guess long story short, it's a video game and the main character is like this alcoholic, drug-addicted, amnesiac detective who is very much broken up about the loss of his wife. And he uses all that, the alcoholism, the drugs, as a sort of crutch for, his trauma, for his remorse, for how he handled the situation with his wife, and all the, the loose ends he has basically in his heart that can never be answered. And every time he sort of needs an excuse for his vices, he just says, kind of comes up with, my trauma, my remorse, all the pain I have within me, it justifies it. And he just sort of sinks deeper and deeper and deeper into his pain. But what's interesting about remorse and how you can handle it, and what's specifically interesting about this game, is that, like I said, you are a detective, and the main point of the game is you're investigating a murder. But at that same time, because you are so drugged up with alcohol and all these, cocaine and crack and whatnot, your character has amnesia, and you don't really know anything about yourself, not even really your name, until you look at your ID. It's that, it's that meticulously crafted. But, God, now I'm drawing a blank. Okay, let me take another bite of my burrito. It is a game that is as happy or as sad as you make it. And that's something that really affected me when I first played it, because I was going through my own stages of remorse at that time. And it wasn't until the second time I played it that I realized all the options you had. Because as you're investigating this murder, because you're an amnesiac, you're also sort of investigating your own life. You're investigating yourself by talking to people who knew you, by exploring the world. You're sort of creating your own story again. And throughout the game, you have several options to wallow in your own misery. and to wallow in your own sorrow. And doing that, you explore and find out more about your past. And my first time I played it, that's sort of what I did because I was wallowing in my own sorrow at that point. And it wasn't until the second time that I played it where I made different choices, I made different options, that I realized how happy and how much better his life can become if you choose to just go forward and to forget about the past and to amend and ameliorate your problems and to just move forward. Let me get a chip though, real quick. I'm hungry for a chip. Oh yeah, chip. But the game was such an emotionally devastating experience for me. Because I really felt like I was, the character, and that I was playing him as I myself would have played him in that very moment. Because it's not an RPG, we're like a role-playing game, for those I guess who don't know. A role-playing game where you are a character and you make pretty loose choices, like say, I don't know, come at me, but like BioWare games where, your big choice just determines one really small thing that doesn't matter. In this game, like quite literally, everything is up to you. You can solve the murder without even touching the body or investigating the body. You can get your partner pretty much killed. You can not do one drug the entire time. You can pump yourself full of drugs. You can do karaoke. You can fail the mission and just piss off and play board games. You can, it's hard to explain. But like I said even earlier, your character doesn't even know his own name unless you physically look at your ID that says your name. And you don't even know what you yourself look like unless you look in a mirror. Otherwise, your character slot is just blurred out. There's that much detail there. And it really is what you make it. So I feel that the sorrow of the player themselves becomes the sorrow of the player character, which to me is just so fascinating and just, an impeccably crafted game that they are able to pull that off. But the remorse of the main character is a psychological scar that he has, and you have this chance to, rid him of it forever. You have a chance to make it so that he never has to think about it again. Give me some more burrito time here. One thing that's super interesting about the game is that you have like your stats, right? But it's not like strength and health and speed, like it would be in like a regular game. But they're random sort of traits and thoughts you have in your head. Like one is authority, one is volition, one is conceptualization. And these thoughts burst into the main character's head, and they sort of argue with each other, and they try to convince you to do things. And, there should be an example playing right now where two thoughts are sort of arguing for the control of this guy. And you sort of have the actual choice to say what you want, but your thoughts will kind of go ahead of you.
Still set it. The time of decision
And I feel that that is such a poetic representation of remorse, in the sense that a lot of times we have this desire to just latch onto our pain and to just keep holding on to it because it's easier that way. Because, you know, you don't have the challenge of trying to fix yourself. But there is always that other voice or voices, maybe, who are trying to, restore you back to what you should be, to the better you, to the natural you. Like, what always happens with the main character in this game. He has sort of negative traits that try to get him to do drugs, or get him to hurt himself, or any of those other horrible things. But he also has voices that are like, hey, you don't need that. Hey, focus on the task at hand. Focus on being kind. Focus on all these much better things to enrich your life. And I think it just kind of comes down to us, as hard as it may be, to try to pick those better choices and to, let the past die, to fix whatever you can fix. And if you can't fix something, then it's okay. You just try to get past it, try to live with it, and just kind of try to grin and bear it, as hard as it may sound. Weird point I want to make. I like to reference my other videos and my current videos to kind of expand upon my points. But now I want to reference a video that I haven't made yet that's coming out, next week. Because next week I'm going to be talking about Stoicism. The art of being Stoic, and the philosophy, I should say, of being Stoic, as according to Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. I'm going to be reviewing that, and also eating Taco Bell. But I would say look up that video in a week, because I think Stoicism applies a lot to remorse, because usually I try to film and do these eating videos in pairs. That, I guess, to me makes sense. But I think you need to be stoic to get past these sort of things, because it's obviously a very traumatic and very horrible experience, but you can't let it determine your entire... Kona Big Wave, please don't make me burp. But you can't let these horrible experiences control your entire life. And you can't let these regrets and these haunting feelings of guilt control your entire life, because you have a long life left to live. And it would just be such a tragedy to, let it be cut short psychologically just because of something that may have happened so long ago. So I guess, I don't know if I myself have any remorse right now. I certainly have guilt of things that were bad that I did. My God, I cannot eat how salty these chips. And I certainly may regret past decisions, right? But maybe my biggest fear is remorse. My biggest fear is living with these horrible thoughts again. And I just strive to not do that. I strive to live every day as if it's my last. Hug the people you love. Do the things you like doing, like these weird videos. And just, don't have a... Oh my God, I really cannot speak. Okay, we're done with the chips, but not with the drink. can't be done with the chips. They're very crunchy, and I'm sure they sound pleasant. Anyway, I try to live life to its fullest every day because who knows what's going to happen next, and who knows what the next day will bring. So, the idea to me of just living in constant regret and almost self-loathing at that point, because I think that's what remorse develops into, is something that I've done in the past and never want to do again. So if any of you out there are going through that as well, I guess one, buy Disco Elysium and play it. It might make you feel better. It kind of made me feel better, maybe. But two, just realize that these things can pass, no matter how insurmountable they may be. And it's not worth living life just full of regret and guilt and pain, because that's what remorse boils down to. And you just have to move on, even if it's just a little step, even if it's just a little sliver of progress every day, because if you make that little bit of progress, eventually you will be healed and you will be living a better life. It just is a slow going process, but know from someone who has been through it that it will get better and you will achieve your goals someday. Burrito ASMR. This is good. But I probably shouldn't drink it all at 2 p.m. We'll see. I regretfully go into my chip bag. Oh my god. What have I done? I'm regretting this already. I'm not supposed to regret things, but I'm regretting eating these chips. Okay, maybe I don't. I just have guilt of eating the chips. Guilt's the lowest on the pain tier of guilt, regret, and remorse. God, what kind of teacher am I? Going back to what I said about remorse being a sort of psychological scar, in a way, don't you think that that's what ghosts are, or poltergeists, or anything of that sort of supernatural, paranormal, I guess, not supernatural, but paranormal phenomenons. Phenomena. Because a ghost could be like someone who obviously, maybe died a horrible way, but someone who died with plenty of remorse. and pain that was so intense that it didn't even allow them to move on to whatever was next and bound them to this plane of existence. That's why, so many, like a Scooby-Doo kind of thing. Well, actually not Scooby-Doo, because usually that's just a person in a costume. But kind of maybe campier films and TV shows will be like, oh, the ghost moves on once it's happy again. And once you're able to fulfill whatever was bothering it in the first place. That's kind of like remorse. It's something that, whether you deal with it now or deal with it way later in life, you will eventually have that reckoning and you will have to confront it. Whether you like it or not. And you're probably not going to like it. That's, what they don't tell you. That's what, like, the self-help guru kumbaya bullshit will never dig into, the fact that it is not pleasant. That it is probably very miserable, and even having the act of having to deal with the remorse, to having to deal with this psychological scar, might even leave a teensy tiny psychological scar in and of itself. But it is necessary. Otherwise, you'll be that ghost. And I'm sure you'll be haunting the house that I move into. And then what am I going to do? I can't stress it enough. These chips suck. What did you do to me, Fairway? I thought you were the only way. The Fairway is the only way. So loud. Why, Bryce, why? Probably should not finish this whole thing right now. But I think that's about it. Remorse equals bad. Hanging on to remorse equals worse. And destroying your remorse is little bad, but very much worth it. In simple terms, I suppose. But that's M. Price Can Eat, a subsidiary company of M. Price Can Read, and I think that's all about we need today. As I mentioned earlier, I'll mention again, check out my video on Stoicism next week. Unless you're watching this like a while after it came out, in which case it's already here. Yay, go check it out. You couldn't resist one more tag, could you? Yeah, you couldn't. But it's actually kind of an interesting idea. The idea of people looking at these like years later. You know, I'm surprised people even look at them now. But I am very honored, and I very much thank you for your patronage and for continuing to support me. And I think it's time to play out. Yeah. As you know, Dog City never sleeps. I hope that you may sleep now.